You're listening to the Bombad Generals.
General? Oh.
Hello and welcome to the Bombad Generals. It's Seth and I'm here with...
Matt.
Yes, hello Matt, how are you?
I'm getting over something, so my voice is a little scratchy today, but hopefully that just adds to the sexy allure that I try to bring to every podcast.
I think you're a little pitch deeper, so. And Todd, unfortunately Todd was unable to make it again.
Speaking of good reviews, yeah.
Speaking of good reviews, Todd is actually preparing his acceptance speech for the Oscars coming up. He wasn't invited, but he has full confidence he's going to win an Oscar with his indie Star Wars fan fiction short film that he made. So,
good luck, Todd.
Good luck, Todd. Prayers and hopes up for Todd on there. So, today we have a very super cool special episode. Matt and I have been really excited about this one, but later this month, March 22nd, is actually the 5 years since the release date. So we're actually going to take a trip down memory lane and just talk about all that has happened from March 22nd, 2018 to today. Mm-hmm. So pretty casual episode that we're just going to have a lot of fun with.
Yeah, I'm really excited for this one. I think, Legion got a lot of new players during the pandemic especially. And, if you just started playing in the last few years, you might have heard of tauntauns and shore chains and whatever. And why are were these things so great? I've basically never seen them on the table. And we kind of want to talk through some of that stuff. All the ways that things have morphed and changed over 5 long years.
So we kind of got a timeline down. So we're just going to go through a whole timeline of the lifespan of Star Wars Legion. Hopefully in 5 years, we can do a 10-year anniversary of Legion, So
that would be cool. That would be cool.
It would be cool. It would be cool. And so, first of all, Legion was announced Gen Con, August 2017 at Gen Con. Matt, what did you think about it when it was first announced?
Yeah, so actually, when it was first announced, I was just, exact same time, I was just starting to get into Star Wars Armada. And I saw the announcement for this game called Star Wars Legion, and I was looking at it, and I thought, that looks kind of cool. Oh, but you have to assemble and paint the miniatures. That's a no from me. I ain't going to be doing that. So that was my first impression.
Yeah. And I wasn't even in the tabletop community. I haven't even played a tabletop game. I'm still a noob and playing Settlers of Catan. So
yeah, this was me first starting to venture beyond that. I think I played a lot of board games with the family, and this was when I was first starting to move out and kind of explore the wider world of games. So it lined up well for me for that. But the same day, August 18th, 2017, the first Sarastro video drops. So if you're not familiar, he's a painter on YouTube who, among other
things... Great painter.
Fantastic painter. Really, really good. Does very good tutorials, including a bunch of Star Wars Legion tutorials. Between the announce date and the release of Legion, I believe he had a tutorial for every single miniature in the core box. So I did not find I did not watch the Luke Skywalker video the day it released, but eventually I stumbled across Sarastro in the months after. And I had started painting Armada squadrons, and that kind of got my foot in the door for painting miniatures. And then when I saw the Sarastro video, it was like, okay, I can't do what he does because he's amazing, but I can at least follow these steps. I know what kind of colors to get, and I can follow this tutorial. And it made everything feel so much more approachable for me, so that when Star Wars Legion released on May 22nd or March 22nd, 2018, I bought 2 core sets, ATST, T-47. I was all in by release day. So quick turnaround from not for me
Super
to
cool.
I'm buying everything day one.
Dang. And what was the appeal of Star Wars Legion that wasn't Star Wars Armada?
I think it's I had kind of seen Imperial Assault and the idea of like the characters really appealed to me. There's just something about like the board and the terrain and seeing the heroes that you know and love that really excited me, and kind of like this grand army idea with, you know, hey, I can grab a bunch of stormtroopers and an ATST invader and go to battle, right? That sort of thing. So when it released, Star Wars Legion, it was Luke, Vader, Rebel Troopers, Stormtroopers, Speeder Bikes, ATRTs was the core set, and then an Airspeeder and an ATST. Now, this is kind of where we get to our first, like, units were not what they are today, because the T-47, so months later, you know, when the 5th Trooper ran, I believe it was the Northeast Open, way later, they gave out the Golden T-47 award for the jankiest list, because the T-47 at that time was a janky unit. It cost as much as an ATST, it didn't have surge to anything, and it could be hit by impact grenades, and literally every single unit the Empire had, remember, Vader, Stormtroopers, Bikes, ATST, they all had impact. So 7 wounds did not last long. It was awful. It was a very, very bad unit back in the day.
Oh, man.
So that was kind of the first exposure to Star Wars Legion. Looked great. I remember the first event I went to, I said, screw it, whatever. I'm just going to run a list. It was a 7 activation list that was... Oh, gosh. Well, back then, remember, it was true. There was not really a way to get to 10 activations. When, you know, right
There's
now...
There's no special forces or anything.
No, well... So this kind of takes us to Wave 2, because this was after Wave 2, actually. May 2018, we get Wave 2, which was General Veers, Snowtroopers, Leia, and Fleets. And from what I understand, it was all designed together. So it was designed together, released in 2 waves. At that point, you could get 10 activations, but essentially it was Veers, 6 Stormtroopers, and 3 Bikes, or Leia, 6 Rebels, and 3 ATRTs. So Veer's triple bike was like, it was the thing. But I was saying, hey, screw it, whatever. I'll play 7 acts. I played a 1 of everything. So it was Luke, Leia. I had an MPL, like the Ion Rebel gun, a Z6, a Fleet, a T-47, an ATRT. It was all over the place. It was fun. But there were very limited options back in the day.
Yep. And then after that came a big a decision for battle decks, and turn 0 was priority supplies. So like July 12th, 2018, priority supplies came out.
Yeah, so that was it was not like an expansion we'll get to later. It was not like what is
Vital Assets.
Yeah, Vital Assets. This priority supplies gave you 1 additional condition, 1 additional objective, 1 additional deployment, right? But now it meant that there was actually value in being, in using your battle deck. Because before, if there's only 4 options for each category, every player's battle deck is going to be exactly the same. So at first, I was thinking, well, red is what you would want to bid for, because then you get to have last ban, you get to deploy second with more information, all of that sort of thing. But actually, back in the day, KP was the single biggest reason to bid for blue, and people were bidding big for blue because of KP, because back in the day, it was blue player would place, red player would place, blue player would place. So you would, as blue player, you would have 2 very advantageous key positions close to your deployment zone, as opposed to now when one has to go as close to the middle as possible.
Yes. Nuts. But that was also back when it was only the 3-card flip. So that's where blue could have KP in the 3rd slot and just ban the first 2 into KP.
And it was pretty much an auto win back then, right? It was, if you could get that, you were golden. So it was pretty quickly errated. But there was a time there where that's why people were bidding for blue for key positions.
Yeah. And then the next release.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, and then the next release, that's when things got really spicy because we had Han and the Commandos with Bobas and Scouts. So this was about August and September releases. And so you actually have Special Forces, Boba being the first operative.
When they announced the game, when they made the rule book and all the cards, there was no mention of operatives. But when they initially designed it, there were no operatives. And then immediately they were like, oh, shoot, we should add a different rank because we need to fit guys like Boba in there. So then, they were like, dang it, operatives are a thing now. So if you bought like a set of tokens, order tokens right at the start of the game, then it's like, oh, man, I know I had to go back and say, hey, can you guys make some custom operative tokens too? Because now I need those. But the big thing were the snipers. Seth, why were OG snipers so crazy?
So currently our snipers are range 1 to 5. When they were first released, they were 1 to infinite range. So you could, just like how Cassian and Iden Versio is now. And so like you could spam up to 3 snipers and have 3 piercing shots. And of course, back then, your boards, there was like little to no line of sight blockers or cover. So like a lot of these snipers were getting open shots and just decimating the battlefield from far, far away.
It was also much smaller dice pools, right? So a single hit going through, even if they were shooting heavy down to light, if they got a single hit through Pierce 1, that was good stuff, right? The peak efficiency at the time was like a Rebel Z6, which is putting like 1 or 2 hits past cover. So having these triple snipers, especially, as you say, on those rough early tables, it was huge. And the sniper war was the game. It was, hey, who can kill each other's snipers first and have the most snipers left over to then snowball and take the game from there.
Yeah.
And at this point, between this and the next release, so November, December 2018, is when we get Palp and IRG, Chewie, Wookiees. Palp is kind of the hipster choice. By the time we get Palpatine, we kind of have all the lists that end up going to the inaugural worlds. As of now, the only worlds that we've seen for Star Wars Legion, they've already settled out, right? Yeah. And we can talk about those probably more when we start thinking about Worlds 2019. But the groundwork is set.
Yes. So Palp IRG, and then in the spring, we then get Rogue One stuff.
It was cool. It was not splashy. It was not. It didn't really make a big meta impact, but I was very excited. Yes. I liked Pathfinders as an aesthetic. Yeah, and when we say Rogue One, it was just the Rebel side of things, right? It was Jyn, Pathfinders, Krennic, Death Troopers. Because yes, there was some more Rogue One stuff to come, I guess. And then also Death Troopers were fun to get. They were a cool hot commodity at the beginning. They were very good. Now their weakness was sniper shots. Because red surging saves, but it was frustrating to shoot into them with something like a Rebel Z6 because if you're only putting 1 or 2 hits past cover, it's pretty likely to save out. Yeah, they just save out, and you're like, oh my goodness! And they're hitting you at range 4. Like that range 4 dice pool was big. Yeah, and it's just like, well, I as a Rebel player, I don't really have an answer to this. I have to get to range 3, but I'm going to be dead by then. Yeah. This was also back when, you could force push units off the battlefield and they would leave, right? That was a thing for a little bit. Yes. I know at the beginning, sorry, we skipped past that, but that was a pretty big thing. Yeah, I think that one got fixed pretty quickly. The Panic a unit off the board lasted a little bit longer. I know that lasted until at least the Clone Wars core set because I panicked Grievous off the table in those days. Yeah. But yeah, force push. Yeah, you didn't want to get force pushed off the side of the table. That was a real. You tried to avoid the side of the tables. Yeah. So yeah. Yeah, keep your Jedi in the middle. For sure. Okay, so spring 2019, Rogue One, and then May 2019,
early summer, we got the first RRG, the first errata have happened. Some of the things I know, they had the coordinated fire nerf, which I did not experience that, but like, can you explain a little bit about that?
Yeah, I didn't play too much in the day, but basically coordinated fire was uncapped. So if a unit spent 3 aims, it could pass along 3 aims to the next unit. So let's say you spotter a unit, you take an aim action, then you have 2 aims, you pass 2 aims to the next unit. Maybe they've also been spotted by Veers. So now they've got 3 aims, and then they take an aim action, so they've got 4 aims. Then they pass 4 aims to the next unit. And it's just silly amounts of aims that can go through there. So coordinated fire, really, really good card. That was kind of one of the first big nerfs that we saw when it comes to actually like command cards, units sort of thing. So they got that in before Worlds, because that happened kind of right as I was starting to finish school and amp up my Legion playing a bit, start to actually play casually at the time, but at least getting games in. And the Worlds was cool. It was perfectly 4 Empire, 4 Rebels, so a good split. We had some big names that you might still recognize making the finals, Luke Cook and Kyle Dornbos. So those guys obviously still around and doing quite well. And every single Rebel list that went to Worlds, that was brought to Worlds, was Wonder Twins. So Seth, I see you have a note in here that's kind of what you started with. And we kind of talked earlier about like, as of August, September, the Worlds lists were locked in. Wonder Twins, as soon as Snipers came out, it was a thing. What was Wonder Twins?
So Wonder Twins was Luke, Leia, spam Rebel Troopers with a heavy, and then you spam your snipers. And that was like, it was just the synergy between Luke and Leia helped a lot. Luke handing out dodges, and then Leia with the coordinated fire, that was pretty big early on. Just kidding, because like that actually helped a lot with Leia and the coordinated bombardment, because that helped a lot with like the sniper wars, because Leia could easily take out opponent snipers with their sharpshooter too. But like I was like, when I first like started the game, I was like, man, how do I build a list? Like, what is a good list? And so I was like, looked up, I was like, Wonder Twins. I was like, oh, easy. Like Luke and Leia, like dynamic duo for Star Wars. Of course, I was terrible with it though, because I hate playing white saves.
Yeah, it was rough. But definitely a bit more on the vanilla side of lists back in the days. Yeah, it's like, Commander Luke, Leia, 6 Z6 Rebels, 3 snipers. And you had enough points to like have a little bit of a twist, Your twist might be, I put a medic on one of my squads, yippee. Or one of those Z6 Rebels is going to be a fleet unit with a rebel officer and a shotgun. Ooh. That was kind of the variety that you saw. So pretty cookie cutter, but of course, the game was kind of in its infancy. And I think the next releases could have blown things wide open. Bosk and Sabine came out June 28th. Bosk, I mean, as my experiences were, at least last summer, he's pretty good still. But back in the day, something like lying in wait, forcing 5 crits, pierce 1. We talked about the small dice pools. Like
pretty good.
That was terrifying. That was utterly terrifying to have that kind of capability start at range 4, right? And then obviously explosions. Similarly, it could just blow up an entire army. It was big offensive potential back in the day. Yeah,
but also like big suppression potential, because there wasn't a lot of suppression mitigation. To like Inspire wasn't in the game except for Leia, and
it was Leia and Veers. And Veers only had Inspire 1, so most armies had a little bit, but not a whole lot. So putting 2 suppression on everything, because it's all Courage 1 core too for the most part. Not a lot of we had the officer upgrade, but people weren't really taking those all that much. So the other thing with Sabine and Bosk, from what I can recall, those were the first models we had that came with multiple poses. It was just super cool. Swapping out arms, but it was at least a step in towards like, hey, we can really kind of customize these things now, which was pretty cool.
Yeah. And then so after that, in August of 2019, we had this changed the meta of Shores and Tauntauns, and so the second wave of Rogue One came out, and then we also had the Dewbacks come out that time, right?
Sort of. They sort of got delayed. So if you've ever heard of the Dewbacle, they shipped with the wrong sized base, so that the Dewback release was delayed a while because they had to swap out all the bases in the boxes there.
Yeah.
But it was a very lopsided release, right? So as you mentioned, completely meta changing, which we'll get into, and kind of why Sabine and Bosk didn't necessarily shift things like we might have thought. Like, they obviously still made appearances, but not nearly as much as Tons and Shores. So for both armies got a core unit with a detachment. So veterans, Shores, mortars, Mark IIs, and they both got a creature trooper. And it was incredibly lopsided because the rebel creature trooper, the Tauntaun, was vastly superior to the Dewback. And the Imperial core, the Shores and mortars, were vastly superior to the rebels veterans at the time. The veterans were really not good. The heavy was only range 1 to 3. It was much more expensive. It was very lopsided, but, you know, why? Like, for those who have maybe only heard about this in, you know, hushed tones, why were Tawns and Shores such a big deal?
So two different reasons. I'll stick on the Tawns because I actually played a lot of that. So Taun wise, they were super fast and got into melee with their Relentless, with their Ram 1, where you can change any dice. Doesn't matter if it was a hit, a surge, or anything. You could change any dice to crit. So like with Ram 2, you would go in, engage, and just ram into them if you made a full speed 3 move. And then which of course. And then what you could do is back then you could disengage, like you could move out of combat freely, like a creature trooper could. And so you would just make a full move around. And then you have reposition, so you just move a little bit back in, and you'd ram back into that same unit. So like in 2 rounds, like you're like killing a unit right there, and you're forcing 5 to 6 saves in melee, and like the trooper unit, they have to like spend their whole activation to disengage, and it was really hurtful. It was pretty brutal. Basically,
super disengage, and again, that dice pool was just huge, right? You know, if you were talking 4 black, 2 white, maybe throw tenacity in there, you know, you're getting a decent number of hits before you even factor in, hey, I'm gonna dice fix 2 of these to crits. And now I've charged your lines, I have 2 dodges. You can either punch me and maybe not do a whole lot, or you can withdraw and lose action efficiency. So Tawns were really good. Shores as well. Comms Relay could go on emplacements. This is the entire reason why Comms Relay now says non-emplacement. It meant that you could order a single shore trooper. They would coordinate to a mortar, which had Comms Relay, would bounce the order to your next shore trooper, would bounce that order to the next mortar, would bounce that to another shore trooper, to the last mortar. So you would get target on all of your shores. And once again, the shore dice pool was
on a 1
really, really good.
Yeah.
And really good at range 4, right? 4 dice critical 1 at range 4 plus mortars. You know, 3 dice crit 1 at range 4. Basically, this is when you see, you know, obviously Rebels swapped to Tawns because Tawns were very good, but you also just start seeing naked Rebel core everywhere because they can't compete in the gunline game. They're outranged, they're out firepowered, they have no shot. So they have to play the aggressive Taun game. And, you know, thinking back on this, it's like, I was a noob at the time, right? And before the units even released, I was like, hey, if I just put a comms relay on this thing, then I can trigger, you know, all these really good keywords for very low cost. And similarly with Tons, I was like, oh wow, these things look really good. I had one on pre-order, and then like when I saw the unit card, I was like, oh man, yeah, I gotta get a few more of these. So it was not intricate, I would say, just as far as like seeing the sheer power level. A noob like me kind of instantly knew these are really good. Obviously, in the hands of very good players, they were devastating. But kind of unlike, I would say, unlike the Blizzard meta, some metas are like the Blizzard meta, where there's not really a great hard counter. Blizzard, Rexstar, you just play the thing. When Tons and Shores were around, you actually saw a rise again in things like Palpatine, because he was really good tech against Tons. So you can actually see counter meta lists doing very well. Now, a lot of those lists also kind of had shore troopers in them, so take it with a grain of salt. But that's the kind of meta I like, where you've got good stuff, but then you can also be rewarded for having a clever counter. So that was probably the last heyday of Palpatine, when he was really succeeding. I think he won LVO, he won Nova, so getting the big tournament wins.
Yeah, and back then it was like if you played Palpatine, you were like a really experienced player, because Palpatine was not like any other unit in the game, and so there's a lot more strategy that went along with Palpatine. So
no, for
pretty
sure.
Pretty hipster. And then September 2019, we got our first point adjustment. This, like, we had our errata, but this was actually change of points. They did some errata as well, like removed plotting from the eWeb. They increased FD laser cannon to range 5. They changed the CMO 93. Was it too expensive? They brought it down in price, right?
Like instantly, they brought the price down. It was released for maybe 2 weeks, and they brought the price down. From what I understand and heard at the time, is that at the last second, it was basically through all of playtesting. I think it had the suppressive keyword on it. At the last second, they removed that keyword and did not adjust the price of the card. So when it released, they did do a points adjustment right away. It was still really bad, but I think it holds a record probably for the fastest unit adjustment relative to release.
Yeah.
That's not the big one. The big one, October 18th, 2019, Clone Wars core set. Here we go. Seth, this is you time.
This is where the whole game changes. So just the core set released shortly after. You had Rex and Dooku release after that. But that's kind of where I enter into the gaming scene. Like, finally, I'm here. But I actually stumbled, kind of like you, on... I was looking up Serasto painting miniatures for MCP, the game that just came out, and I found Star Wars Legion. I found his tutorials there, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is so much cooler, because just the whole idea of like big thematic games, armies. I've seen some play of like Warhammer, and I was like, man, not my thing, but like for Star Wars, yes, 100% in. So I'm all in. And so I bought get the Clone Wars, get all the core sets for Christmas and everything. So
there we go. That's really cool for me to hear, because I didn't realize that we both kind of discovered Legion, or at least, got that final push to get into it, both from Sarastro. And looking at it now, like the original videos, they're anywhere from, 200, 300, one even up to 400,000. Surprisingly, the most views on one of the early videos is Stormtroopers painting guide at 396,000 views. That seems like if I was looking up a tutorial, I wouldn't go first to the Stormtrooper. That seems like one of the easier ones you don't need a guide for.
Well, here's what you do. You paint your first Stormtrooper and you're like, this looks like crap. And then you watch a video.
True. That's fair. White is very difficult to paint. So that makes more sense now that I think about it a little. But if just 1% of the people who saw those videos ended up getting into Legion because of it, like, that's so many people. And that's, I think,
super cool.
Great move by FFG, partnering up there. And I'm interested to see if they, do something similar with Shatterpoint when that comes out. Obviously, AMG seems like they have some sort of connection with them if they're doing MCP stuff. So remains to be seen. I think a great way to get people into the hobby. So really, really cool.
Yeah. And then the 2020, you have OP Luke and Vader come out. So this was our first duplicate unit, like of the same character, just a new version. So
first
that then opened up
cards as well.
Yeah, first 6 command cards, and then you had your R2D2 with C-3PO come out for the Rebels, and the Gar. Man, he was broken when he first came out.
He was 35 points and insane.
35 points. And so seeing that, but also people are preparing for the World Tournament. And then you had the emergency rules update for Shores and Tawns between LVO
so
and
sometime
Worlds.
In February 2020, I believe, we got I don't think it was even like a full RRG change. It might have been just like it was some sort of thing. It was
an article or something.
Yeah, that said like, okay, comms relay doesn't work on emplacement troopers anymore, and creature trooper rules are different. They can't get out of melee for free.
Yeah.
So they got ringed in quite a bit.
Yes.
Which was good, Obviously,
really good.
Crazy that they would do something to fix an out of control meta list between LVO and Worlds.
Wow.
Yeah, wild.
Even it was just little changes too. Like they were still playable. Like you still saw Shores everywhere, Tawns everywhere, but yeah. So, and then after that, we go to late February. This is when the wave 2 of the core set comes out, of the Clone Wars come out, where like you have your phase 2s. Oh my gosh, your phase 2s. This is the first Courage 2 core unit that's not like a mortar.
This is where Gar really starts hitting its stride because the phase 2s have a training slot, so they can take Overwatch. So now
because offensive push came out with this wave too.
Because offensive push came out with the upgrade packs. So like the Rebel Trooper upgrade, the Clone upgrade, all of those. Yeah, offensive push was really good because how that comboed with take that clankers, where before you just had to have an aim, so you could move, tap offensive push to get the aim, and then hit something from range 4, so you start almost range 5 away. That was really good. Yeah. And then clones could standby share, so you could have a naked P1 at 52 points, take a standby, and it would be way far in your back lines, and you have a P2 in the front of your lines with Overwatch, and that unit can just spend that standby, get extra attacks off. So P2s really are a big unlock for clones.
Big. And then you have your B2s. They weren't super great.
Some noise. Kyle was big into them all B2s. It was another reason.
Well, Maul's not out yet.
Oh, true. Maul took a little bit more time. Yeah.
Yes. And then so B2s, you had your Saber Tank, your AAT. Actually, after this release, I had a skirmish tournament, and that was my first tournament, and I won with a Rex Saber list.
There you go.
Yeah.
Saber Tank, not too bad. I think around this time as well, we got a full preview of ARC Troopers. They didn't actually release until the fall, but with the pandemic happening at this time, there was a lot of online play. There was Invader Leagues going on all throughout this, but at the same time that in real life, P2s are coming out. Digitally, people are playing with ARCs, and really digitally is the only game in town, TTS, because
coronavirus.
COVID. So ARCs as well with range 5, crit 1 are just tearing things up. So clones just rocket. They are dominating the competitive scene. This was a meta where there was no counter. It was just someone else is playing Rexstar. You should probably
one's
play
playing
Rexstar.
More core focused, one's playing more arc focused. Like that's all it was. Yeah, I also remember, like, it just came to mind, but like back when the Phase 2s first came out and like following weeks, like it was extremely hard to get your hands on a Phase 2 because like there was like short. I remember I called up a game store in California and I'm in Oklahoma, and I called them up. I was like, hey, do you have any, like, I saw on your website that you had Phase 2s, and they said, yeah, we got 3 units of them. So I was like, I'll take all 3.
Yeah.
Like, so they shipped them over to me. So I got them all the way from California. I was like, so I like scored big on that.
Yeah, they were tough to find.
So they were. It was good memory. Good memory.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk more? I know it was a list you were running for a long time. What were all the silly tricks that Rexstar had? You know, when people hear Rexstar, what was the quintessential version of Rexstar?
Yeah, so this was during the standby sharing. Of course, you had like maybe one you mentioned it before, but like you had your Phase 1 just sharing standbys, and like pretty much like that game, it was still like in a range 3 big bubble. Like you punish anyone like who came into range 3 of you, either with your arcs, putting them, giving them Overwatch, or giving your Phase 2s Overwatch, and then you would just murder everyone. And then also with Take That Clankers, you know, I like to give them to my arcs, because then you could do a range 3 shot with their pistols.
Were you doing full arc version then, more so?
Oh, well, yeah, I only did like one full arc with with Echo.
Okay.
And so, yeah, just because I can't bring a full arc without a reliable one.
That's fair. Basically, there were a couple of versions, right? There was an 11-act version, which was pure beef. You had 5 kitted out P2s, 3 arc snipers, a naked P1 Rex. Like, I think in that Invader League, there were like 10 copies of the exact same list that you could fit in. Well, it was so many red saves with reliable and aggressive tactics. Yes. It was, you couldn't chew through it.
Some people brought R2 and just like transported to R2 to score. Every list had 3 snipers though, but like that was back when like the snipers had lethal and critical 1. So like the snipers, even when I played them, like they chewed through armor like at range 5. So like they were super oppressive on that. Like you could spend dodges, but like situational awareness wasn't really out then.
No.
And so like you just get a crit and then spend an aim, and also aim like unlimited token sharing was possible. So like Rex was just like there as a support, like just double move, like that's all he needs to do, or like move standby.
Move standby was huge, and turn 0 tokens were a thing, right? So before you could trigger tactical off of a move during the deployment phase. So you would scout 3 arc troopers, they would all get an aim. You could even tap. Rex would scout, he would get an aim. You could tap offensive push on units when they scouting party, and they would get aims. And then you had, before the game started, you had like 4, 5, 6 aims, and then you would play Take That Clankers and nuke something.
Yep, exactly. Just like, it was pretty oppressive.
It was. Arcs were, from what I'm told, were tested in the height of Old Tawns and Shores. So they were built for that meta, and then that meta got reined in, and there was no contest at that point. They had no predators.
No predators. And so
but
that was them.
Yeah, for Worlds 2020, I guess I'll touch on it briefly, because I was painting hardcore, like redoing all of my Rebel Troopers at the time to get ready for it, and ARC Troopers were not going to be out yet, so I was actually running a list that might sound kind of familiar. I had Operative Luke, I had a Rebel Officer, 5 DLT Rebel Squads, I think 3 snipers, maybe 2 snipers, and an FD turret. So even back in the day, I was liking the Op Luke Rebel DLT gun line.
So when did the DLTs like release?
They released as part of the same time offensive push. So with the upgrade pack. So the Rebel Trooper upgrade pack had some guns that no one cares about, the useless Rebel Specialists, and the DLT.
That's right. So Cool.
I got 5 of those and basically only assembled the DLTs from all 5 packs.
Yes. So you had that, and then Worlds didn't happen, unfortunately. And then you had April 6, 2020. Game changed a ton because silhouettes were announced.
Dang, so that long ago.
Right. Wow. And so so again, no one was playing in person, so this was all TTS. So everyone, like the TTS team, like put the silhouettes in the mod and just like kind of changed the way just people played because like, I mean, not a ton of like, it didn't change a ton, but like, there was definitely, it was a lot more precise.
I think it was probably actually for the best in the sense that we got to kind of ease ourselves into silhouettes via TTS because you just click a button and they come up. Like using silhouettes in real life is a lot tougher. But, when we talk about ARC Troopers and soon we're going to get like Clan Ren, like they kind of necessitated the need for silhouettes because of the big, they're jumping on their jetpacks, right? So if you don't, if you have true line of sight, it's going to be impossible to hide those guys. It's going to be impossible to get cover. So it kind of necessitated the need for silhouettes. And then obviously, 3 years later, now we have silhouettes for everything in the game. But everything. That's when it started back on April 6, 2020. And then, June 5, we get vital assets. So this really takes things into overdrive because now you have 8 cards in every category. So blue player, you're eliminating half the battle cards just by being blue player. And the cards themselves are things like, Bombing Run opens things up for skew lists quite a bit.
Yes. Yeah.
So I think it's not fully realized until a bit later. And we'll get to that. But certainly it gives us all the objectives, deployments, and whatnot that we have today. I'm all for having more of those, of course. Having more, it's just tougher to balance, but some really cool ones. Yeah. I really liked Payload before the change. It was probably my favorite objective. It came in Vital Assets. So, some good stuff. Very creative deployments, I think, too. Yeah,
like Hemmed In was like a whole new thing that was like, whoa.
Yeah, the first non-symmetrical deployment, and only, I guess, still currently.
Yeah. For sure.
We get the real good one, because that summer is when Seth and I finally... start talking online. I was looking back at our old Discord messages. We hammered out a lot of ladder games.
Ladder games, yeah.
That was, I think at some point in a future episode, we'll probably talk more about the ladder and our experience with it. And kind of, for me at least, it was very big in just my practice and improvement. But June 26th, July 10th, July 16th, July 28th, it was just... Games.
Yeah. It was a good time.
Good times.
We were a lot as a player. And then that's when also you showed me your Gungan DLT unit that you got 3D printed.
This is where we know we both love Gungans. My note in the show notes was I think it was, we know things are getting off on the right foot because I shared the picture of the Gungan DLT. I was also very happy with that one for sure.
Oh man. And then we get paired up in the ladder elimination.
Yeah, I think we were both playing some sort of Rex Arcstar kind of list.
I think so. Yeah. I don't remember who won.
I think I won that one, and then I eventually lost to JJ, who was also playing a different Arcstar kind of list at the same time. That was a
great card player, though. So,
also, a very, very good player. I think that was when we really had Echo available, because I think he wasn't legal for Echo and Fibes were not legal for Invader, but then we got more spoilers and we could use them for ladder and such. So playing around with them.
Yeah, and then later that August. This is when our friendship grew more, where I invited you to join to create a YBTL League team. And so the start of our team name called Jar Jar Sphinx.
Once again, more Gungan love there. Yeah, Yavin-based team league. Really awesome. Starting up again in April. We'll probably do some plugs for it then. But it's... it's kind of crazy to me that it was, again, that long ago. But it was a lot of reps for sure.
Yeah,
just
for
even
sure.
more games. And yeah, and as we say, like kind of continuing that relationship. And that's also when we get, Anakin, Maul, the T-Series. So yeah, the big one here, Clone Commander and T-Series.
Clone Commander, yeah.
Clone Commander with 5s, that's big news because that's coordinate,
Really
that's
good.
more aggressive tactics value, that's huge. T-Series, that's what opens up a lot of Sys list building possibilities because now they have a cheap commander who's not Grievous or Dooku. So that opens the way for things like 13-act Staps, which go on to do pretty well for in the following Invader League.
Even now, they still do well.
Even now, they're kind of making a comeback.
Yeah. I think the big thing for Clone Commander was actually like you had aggressive tactics, but like was take that clankers because it wasn't the orders, like the issue orders for the card. It was anyone with the face up order. So you could get 4 units with the take that clankers. So you load up your phase 2s, like every phase 2 would have that move up to range 4 and shoot.
That's true. That was another big thing. Just when we thought it couldn't get worse. But luckily
it got worse.
It did get better in November.
Yes.
Because this was the first wave of nerfs for clones.
Yeah.
And how much did this one hurt as a clone player?
No, not at all.
It was
not
fair.
At all
it was fair.
It was fair. Definitely necessity. This is actually when the RG released Legion 2.0. So there's actually a lot of rules changes on here because like not only did clones get nerfed, but there was actually a lot of things that got buffed that hasn't been seeing play. So for instance, arcs nerfed, like their price went up by like 6 points, phase 2s by 2 points, standby sharing taken away, no more turn 0 tokens, so you can do that turn 1 big bomb. Of course, like you still did a turn 1 big bomb because take that clankers was still really good.
Very good.
Wookiees, they got scale keyword because scale was released with General Grievous. So they gave that to Wookiees, and then they also got duelists, so they could pierce in melee. So that was really, and they could block pierce. Air speeders. This is where air speeders got a lot of love. They got surge to crit on their weapon, and so they had like their impact 3 now surging to crit. So really good,
and obviously a big points reduction as well. So they didn't feel so bad losing them if they actually had to roll saves.
Yeah, so double airspeeder actually after that update, like really like that saw a lot of play, not just because of the surge to crit, but like compulsory move could now use how it started was you had to do your compulsory move at the beginning of your turn every time, but now this update you could do it at the beginning or at the end of your turn. And so that also helped your T47s like with like last firsting on that. And so
that was a great change for sure. Helped a lot.
Great change. And then of course you could like attack out of and into an open transport. So now it's like the Gav tank, like, oh, like I can bring an E-web into the Gav tank and like do some cool tricks there. And so
or I can put on in a land speeder and just gunslinger away. So again, I think really great changes there. I think for me, looking back at this one, it makes me sadder thinking about our most recent change because looking at all the units that got help. And for me, I think it's obviously there's always going to be some units that probably need to be toned down a bit. It's unrealistic to just bring everything up. That's going to be a tall order. So some stuff's going to have to come down, but I think it's a lot less of a feel bad if at the same time you can say, hey, all these things that were struggling, we're giving them a boost. That didn't really happen back in November 2022 or December. And hopefully they get back to it. That's what I'd love to see. Really the only thing that got helped, we were talking before the show, was clone medics, which was good, but it's not like Wookiees getting scale and duelist and airspeeders getting surge crit, right? Like that, those were huge. Yeah.
Huge changes, really good changes. And then you had the clone specialists and personnel expansions. So that was a lot of like your clone medics was released.
February. We got Vigilance, which came out with those expansions.
Yes.
So that's actually when I first started playing around with, Vigilance Rebel gun lines, because again, Arcs still had critical. So if you had, and really, after the nerfs, 10-Ac Rexstar was still very, very good. It was still very strong. Yeah. But it did lean quite a bit on those arcs to get early wounds. And if you had situational awareness and you always had a dodge, it was actually pretty good tech into the clones. So that's when I started playing around with situational captains with Rebel DLTs. Yeah. It didn't last long because of something else we'll talk about in a moment, but I don't want to skip over the Dallas Open 2021. My man Seth taking it down. Yes.
That was actually the first tournament since the COVID. So it was the first big tournament that happened that people actually traveled to. It was also my first 800-point IRL tournament, and I played my Rex gunline list. And so Rex Clone Commander, 4 Phase 2s, 1 with 5s, 3 Z6s, Phase 1 with the rocket launcher, and 3 snipers, 10 Axe. Really solid.
Really solid. Getting that big tournament win.
Yeah.
Pretty exciting. I remember it's like, okay, here we go. We're Jar Jar Sphinx. We're legit. We've got this guy. Seth. He's taking things down.
Oh man, yeah, it's fun. And then after that, we had the closed transports. So your bus came out.
Oh, the bus and the lat, but who cares about the lat? Really?
But who cares? The
bus was nuts. And this is when I, as soon as I had started experimenting with Vigilance Rebel gun lines, I stopped experimenting with those because they got wrecked with aggressive bus play. Buses delivering Wookiees into those guys did not end well.
Oh man.
All those aims before, start of the round from Tactician. A theme here. Getting 3 tokens before the round starts. Very powerful, it turns out.
Pretty good.
What do you know?
Getting any tokens before the round starts, that's not a surge token, is pretty powerful.
I mean, even surge tokens, pretty powerful. Pretty great. So buses were really big there. We didn't really have too much again. November 2021, that was kind of when I was starting up tournaments and kind of started hitting them up regularly with SoCal Open 2021. Taking a single bus list. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, like, during this whole time, it's like we're also transitioning from FFG to AMG. Mm-hmm. So, like, a lot of the releases were pretty slow. News wasn't really coming. So, like, it's pretty... Legion got a little dead.
Yeah. I mean, I guess for me, it was just starting... Play was picking up locally as far as, IRL play. With the vaccines coming out and everything. So I think that helped a lot for sure to make it not feel dead on my side. But again, another thing that helped quite a bit, in November, we got another big rules change. This one had quite a few changes for turn 0. So now we got the 4-card flip. So all 4 cards in your battle deck.
Great change.
Get flipped over, because before it was just 3. So, someone could no longer force a single card because, again, we're kind of talking about 13-act staps. If they got Bombing Run in that 3rd slot, then they could use both of their bans, and then there's no 4th slot, so you have to leave it on Bombing Run, and it's kind of game over. Similarly, way back in the start, we talked about KP if it came up in the 3rd slot, so it kind of always... was a barrier for things and probably limiting for the design space. So I think a really good change there with the 4-card flip. And then also red player choosing the side of the table, because before blue player got to choose that. So kind of spreading around the benefits a bit more. And then also Rexstar got nerfed again.
Big nerf. Rex hasn't seen really play since then. You don't have arcs.
Yeah, because he got upped in cost. Arcs lost critical, but stayed hella expensive.
Yeah, but you can't share. You can only share 1 token per attack or defend.
Right, and that is probably the biggest of those changes. for sure.
Yeah, really big. And then after that, since the clones got nerfed, we had to release non-clone units for Gar. The Kashyyyk wave.
Yoda. Well, he's not a clone, but he works well with clones.
I said non-clone units to Gar. And so Kashyyyk wave. But Yoda and Wookiees got pretty overshadowed by Magnas and spiders.
Yeah. It did not take long for people to figure out Magna spiders are really good. I think
really good.
Looking back just off the top of your head, I think it's easy to overlook the dominance. It doesn't really stand out, at least for me, the same way Tawns and Shores dominated or Arcstar, but like LVO, Magna Spiders winning that. Adepticon, Magna Spiders winning that. You know, some more stuff. Like, it wasn't just they were winning tournaments, but like they were a majority of cuts. Like, I think LVO 2022 of the top cut, which was a cut to 6, I think like 3 or 4 players had 2 of Maul, Magnas, and Spiders.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
They were just really, really good. And they kind of, it was only recently that they actually got touched. They were a unit that was balanced by power creep, I would say, which we'll get to.
Yeah,
but,
for sure.
It was annoying to play against them, for sure.
Yeah.
They have a lot of answers.
So, and
maybe
then
that's just because I'm not a droids player. Oh,
that's true. I'm not a droids player either. So then later that spring of 2022, my boy Matt wins the Bay Area Open. What were you running for that?
That was Luke Vigilance DLT gunline for that one, beating Bobby Joe, that loser in the finals. So that felt really good. I think, you know, I had never really actually won anything before, and I was slowly getting like, okay, I made a cut at Adepticon. It was the first time I'd ever made a cut. And then Bay Area Open, it was, we had actually had quite a bit of attrition. I think they moved Star Wars Celebration to the same weekend, and obviously the same state, because it was down in Anaheim. So we lost a whole bunch of players. It ended up only being a 20-person tournament, but the quality of players was very good. So for me personally, it still felt like a validation, which was nice. Yeah, kind of clear that hurdle and move on. So we talked about spider droids balanced by power creep. Shadow Collective and specifically Pikes is what did that. So they came out June 17th. Turns out having units that are really good that also happen to have an Impact 1 Range 4 weapon, they can do a lot with spiders. And I remember when Pikes came out, just trying that. And I was used to Rebel DLTs where it's like, okay, well, I hit 6, and it's like, well, cover takes away 2, dodge takes away 1. Oh shoot, I still have to roll 3 saves. And my Rebel troopers don't love that. Pikes, they can be loaded up with dodges, so they're only rolling 2 or 1 save potentially. And it was like, okay, this is very good. Again, free tokens at the start of a turn before the turn even begins. What do you know? It's very, very good.
On your core unit, so it's every unit has that.
Yeah, exactly. Just I remember like early when I was I think at first I was playing like triple vigilance with 6 pikes, and it was something like 15 dodge tokens at the start of turn 2, and it's like this is wild. This shouldn't be a thing.
Yeah, no. And then later on, we got the battle forces. So right after Mercs, you had all 4 battle forces released for print and play, and of course you had the battle forces box. Of course Blizzard came out, but I think Blizzard it was kind of overshadowed because everyone was like thought Echo based Defenders was super broken with their 3-pip.
And I'm not sure that was wrong either. I think the 4FD version is a little too inflexible because a very good player can range control when a lot of your units can't move. I think Echo Base is kind of wrecked with the deflect change and Commander Luke being way worse now. but I mean, I think the 2 FD version, where you turn the other 2 FDs into Chewie and the officer, was actually probably very, very strong. But people wanted to get those 7 standbys off, which I can't blame them. It's really good.
It's really when it goes off really hard.
Yeah, and I think people were a little hesitant about like a 10 activation list with no order control for the bikes, in Blizzard Force. But then once they start playing, it was like, oh yeah, no, this is just a ton of threat saturation and it's really good.
Yeah.
But yeah, it definitely was not making waves right away. I mean, it did make Lone Star. We'll talk about Lone Star in a second. It made the final day, I think, finished top 4. And that was people still kind of figuring it out too, right? So it was actually it was flying under the radar, but it was still having success right away.
It wasn't really talked about. Yeah. And then we had the Lone Star Open, which was July. Matt and I, we meet in real life for the first time. Yeah, it
was pretty cool.
Matt, it was cool. It was fun meeting your friends that you've only talked with online. Really cool to meet them in person. Of course, Matt, you win this tournament with your Maul Bosk pike list.
Keep the streak alive. Once I got the taste, I just had to keep going.
Had to keep going.
But you didn't do too bad either. You got best in faction for clones.
I'll take it. Yeah, I went 5-1. So,
not shabby at all.
It was not shabby. I'll take it. Hey, put my ELO up. So
exactly. I think you broke top 10 after this tournament for North America.
I think I did. Yes, I broke top 10. And then that fall, you have your bounty
you're
hunter.
skipping over the biggest thing from Lone Star. You're not here. This is where you commit to playing Yoda. This is where you're bit by the Yoda bug that continues to this day.
Man, I got the Yoda. Man, because this is my first time, playing him in like a tournament in Yoda. I was just like, man, he's a drug. I played Yoda, Chewbacca, 4 phase 1s, 2 Z6s, 2 rockets, and then triple barks. And of course, I had like a really high, I think I had a 9-point bid or something. And it was super fun to play. So
Yoda's a blast for sure.
He's a blast playing that. Yeah, recon intel on Chewie, and then turn 1 size matters sometimes. Not too shabby.
Yeah.
So that was really fun. And then, fall, you have Boba, all your bounty hunters released, Boba. This is where your IG droids are released as well. And so that was
good. This is where I start to get into Empire, because I figure, hey, I'm going to bind Din and the IGs anyways, because, for my Rebel army, why not play them in the Empire as well? I buy just the units I need to put together a list around that, and end up taking Empire to a couple tournaments, including GSG in November, which we both ended up going to. It was kind of a last-minute ad, but it had a Worlds invite, which is, I'm sure, what brought you down.
Yeah, which I heard the rumors of that because I couldn't make LVO because I found out I was having a kid. I was like, man, there's no way I can make a tournament, get Worlds, or I was hoping for a last chance qualifier. And then I heard about GSG that announced, and I bought tickets right away. So
yeah, and you got the invite. That's when we before the tournament we had already decided to start doing the podcast, but we ended up facing each other on the final table. And that made the story for our inaugural episode. So we're getting pretty close to the present day here. December 2022, we get points updates that kill everything except Blizzard. But as we said,
medics get a bonus.
And I'm happy for that.
Which gives actually a lot of life to Gar. So, yeah.
Hey, it meant I actually took them out and painted them. So, I'm a fan.
I got a whole nother box of them, so yeah.
I don't know why, but I already had 3 boxes of medics. I'm not sure what possessed me to do that back in the day. I was a crazy person.
No idea.
Yeah. I mean, I go overboard. I still have, I think, 2 unpainted boxes of Rebel Mandalorians just hanging around, so I have a problem.
Yeah,
It's okay.
I don't think you'll ever paint them, so you're fine.
Yeah, they might end up as local prizes at some point here.
There you go.
But the CRB, obviously, big shakeup. We won't dive too deep into that.
Yeah.
Because, now we're into territory where, hey, we've already talked about on the podcast.
Yeah.
CRB,
Dark Troopers.
Yeah. We'll see. Dark Troopers might be one of those things in the future that we look back on that's in kind of the same tier as Spiders, Tawns, Rexstar, all of those things. I think especially once Blizzard gets out of the way, probably it's going to be a lot of Dark Troopins doing their Star Wars dubstep stuff.
Yeah, which I think we're going to look back. Honestly, I think we're going to look back and be like, man, I wish it was nerfed or touched, just because I feel like it's just going to dominate worlds. Like, it's going to be Darkster Blizzard.
Yeah, the two of those. For
or
sure,
even
we'll
like Double Bounty. Like, it's going to be Empire.
Empire. Empire has some problems right now. I got in at the right time, it would seem.
Yeah, you did. Oh, man. And so, so that's our 5-year recap.
A lot has happened. A lot has happened.
Some good, some neutral, a little bad.
Mostly good, I would say. There's a reason we're sticking with this game. But
yeah, it's still a great game. Love this game. I hope to play this game for another 5 more years.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
For some of the newer players, this gave some good context. Maybe for some more veteran players, is a good trip down memory lane.
Yeah.
But, I think it's pretty fitting that the 5-year anniversary itself will be happening, a day before the last chance qualifier in Worlds, the second Worlds starts. It's crazy that it's year 5 and it's Worlds 2, but
right. It's like, I would say like this would be probably the first World Tournament, because the first World Tournament was mainly just US players.
Yeah.
Didn't have a lot of people around the globe traveling, and so now this tournament, we're hearing a lot of that. So it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be a fun time.
The game has matured a lot, and I mean, maybe I'm going out on a limb here. I don't expect any Wonder Twins to make the top 8 at this World.
I don't either. I don't expect Palp to make the top 8.
No, I don't expect Leia at all anyway, to make the tournament. We'll see.
Oh man. I'm even going to step forward. I don't expect Rebels to make the top 8.
Yeah, I would. They have some play with the FD turrets, perhaps, but it'll be tricky. Opluke's still good. We'll see. We'll see. There's some very good Rebel players out there, but hey,
I mean, there are.
We'll save all that chat for the our next episode. With just us and Todd, of course, when we preview Worlds that will drop right when we're in the middle of playing games there. So look forward to that. Next week we'll be recapping the Rocky Mountain Open. So that will be very exciting as well. So thanks everyone for listening. And stay Gungan.
This has been the Bombad Generals.
Listening to Bombad Generals is not scientifically proven to make you a better Legion player. Side effects may include bad dice rolls, missed triggers, aim losses, bankruptcy, divorce, vomiting, and sudden death. Ask your doctor if Bombad Generals is right for you.